At number 10 spot, we have the Mercy Brown vampire incident. Many of you guys might know about this one. The Mercy Brown vampire incident took place in 1892 on Exeter, Rhode Island. At the time, the town was plagued by a series of deaths caused by a mysterious illness which is now known today as tuberculosis. However, at the time, they believed it was a curse placed on the town by vampires. The incident centered around the Brown family, who had lost several members to the illness. In an effort to lift the curse and save the remaining family members, it was decided that the body of the recently deceased daughter, Mercy Brown, would be exhumed and her heart would be burned. This was because when they checked up on all the family members, they noticed that she was showing no sign of decomposition and there was still blood in her heart. On the night of the exhumation, a group of men gathered at the cemetery to perform the ritual. As they were prepared to burn her heart, one of the men noticed that there were fresh blood on her lips. This was seen as a sign that Mercy was in fact a vampire, and the decision was made to also burn her liver and stake her through the heart to ensure that she could never rise again. The incident caused a sensation at the time and was widely reported in the newspaper. It was sparked debate about the existence of vampires and the proper way to deal with them. Despite the efforts of the men in the cemetery that night, the illness continued to plague the town, leading many to believe that the curse was never truly lifted. At a number 9 spot, we have Fingernails Freddy. Fingernails Freddy was a notorious figure in the small town of Cumberland, Rhode Island. Known for his long, sharp fingernails that were rumored to be laced with poison, Freddy was what many people feared. He was said to have been born with a rare genetic condition that caused his nails to grow at an alarming rate, and he honed his deadly claws by sharpening them on the stones of the local river. Despite his fearsome reputation, no one knew much about Freddy's past or why he had chosen to live in isolation in the woods around the town. Some said that he was a former circus performer who had been cast out by his troupe for his dangerous and his unpredictable behavior. Others whispered that he was a mad scientist who had conducted gruesome experiments on animals in his secret laboratory deep in the forest. Regardless of what he was, it wasn't until 3 kids got murdered in the woods here when the town started to believe in the legend more. But as the years passed, Freddy's reign of terror began to fade, and the legend ends with a group of brave hunters venturing into the woods to track him down. And apparently they eventually cornered Freddy in his lair, and yeah, you get the rest. At number 8 spot, we're the Flying Dutchman of the Narragansett Bay. Flying Dutchman time! Oops, not that one. The Flying Dutchman of the Narragansett Bay is a ghost ship that is said to sail the waters of the bay and cursed to roam the seas for eternity. According to the legend, the Flying Dutchman was once a mighty ship that plied the waters of the Atlantic Ocean. It was commanded by a fearless captain and crewed by a dedicated and loyal team of sailors. However, the ship met its doom when it was caught in a violent storm off the coast of Rhode Island. Despite their best efforts, the captain and his crew were unable to save the ship. It was battered by the storm and eventually capsized, sinking to the bottom of the bay. The captain and his crew were all lost, and their spirits were doomed to roam the waters of the bay till the end of time. Since that fateful day, the Flying Dutchman has been sighted many times by locals and visitors to the bay. Some have even claimed to have heard the ghostly voices of the captain and his crew crying out in desperation and despair. Many believe that the Flying Dutchman is cursed and that anyone who sees the ghost ship will suffer a terrible fate. Some have reported feeling a sense of fear and dread when they come into contact with the ghost ship, as if they're being warned to stay away. At our number 7 spot, we have the Newport Tower. The Newport Tower is a mysterious stone structure located in the city of Newport, Rhode Island. The origins of the tower are shrouded in mystery, and it has been a subject of much speculation and debate over the years. Some believe it was built by Vikings, while others believe it was built by Portuguese explorers. Regardless of who built it, according to the legend, the Newport Tower is said to be cursed. Locals claim that anyone who dares to enter the tower will suffer a terrible and most of the time gruesome fate. Despite the warnings, many people who have ventured inside of the tower have reported strange and inexplicable occurrences. The most common things reported here are screams of disembodied voices and the feeling of something or someone holding your ankle. One of the most chilling stories associated with the tower is that one day a group of young students decided to spend the night inside here. And only after one night, the students were never seen or heard from again, and their fate remains a mystery to this day. The legend of the Newport Tower continues to captivate the imaginations of locals and visitors alike. Despite the many theories and stories surrounding the tower, its true origins and purpose still remains a mystery. Some say it is a portal to another realm, while others believe it holds the key to ancient secrets and hidden knowledge. But what do you guys think is inside here? Could it just be an old lighthouse? Who knows? At a number 6 spot, we have the Perron family. The Perron family haunted house is a true story that has been adapted into a popular horror film called The Conjuring. The Perron family, consisting of husband Roger, wife Carolyn, and their 5 daughters, moved into a large secluded farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island in 1971. At first, the family was excited to move into their dream home, but they realized that something was not quite right. Strange noises and eerie presences were felt throughout the house, and the family began to experience terrifying occurrences on a daily basis. The haunting became more and more intense, with objects moving on their own and furniture being thrown across the room. The family also heard footsteps, voices, and even saw ghostly apparitions wherever they went. Desperate for help, the parents turned to the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for assistance. The Warrens conducted a series of exorcisms and other rituals, but the haunting continued to escalate. The family was forced to live in constant fear, with some members even being physically attacked by the malevolent spirits that haunted the house. After living in the house for 10 years, the parents were finally able to break free from the spirits and move out. Today, the old farmhouse still stands, an eerie reminder of the terrifying events that took place within its walls. In the hump of our list, we have the Ladd School. The Ladd School is said to be haunted by the ghosts of former patients who once lived there. The Ladd School was founded as the Rhode Island School for the Feeble-Minded in 1908. It was originally intended to be a place where people with mental and physical disabilities could live and receive more care. However, over the years, the school had become known for its inhumane treatment of their patients, including instances of physical and psychological abuse. Many of the former patients who lived at the Ladd School have reported seeing ghostly figures wandering the halls and hearing strange noises coming from the empty rooms. Some have even claimed to have been touched or grabbed by unseen hands. One particularly eerie story coming from this place is of a former employee who worked at the school in the 1980s. They claim that one night while they were working the night shift, they heard a loud banging noise coming from one of the patients' rooms. When they went to investigate, they found the room was completely empty and the door locked from the inside. To this day, she had no explanation for what could have caused the noise, let alone whatever locked her inside of that room. Another ghostly encounter at the Ladd School involved a group of students who were visiting the school as part of a field trip. They reported seeing a ghostly figure standing at the end of a hallway, staring at them with a blank expression. When they approached the figure, it suddenly vanished right into thin air. At our number 4 spot, we have the Rhode Island Lighthouse. The Rhode Island Lighthouse is a historic and iconic landmark located in Narragansett Bay. Built in the early 18th century, the lighthouse has served as a beacon of hope and guidance for ships navigating the treacherous waters of the bay. However, over the years, the lighthouse has also gained a reputation for being haunted, with many people claiming to have experienced strange and unexplained occurrences within its walls. According to the legend, the ghost of a former lighthouse keeper named Captain James T. Waring is said to haunt the lighthouse. Captain Waring was the lighthouse keeper at the time of the American Revolution, and it is said that he died in the lighthouse under mysterious circumstances. His ghost is said to roam the halls and rooms of the lighthouse, and many people have reported seeing him or feeling his presence while they visit. Other stories about the lighthouse include the ghost of a young woman who's said to have drowned in the bay. Her ghost is said to appear on the shores of the island, beckoning to those who come near. However, the Rhode Island Lighthouse remains a fascinating and mysterious place, and it is sure to continue to capture the imagination of those to hear its haunting tales. At our number 3 spot, we have the Brenton Point State Park. The Brenton Point State Park, located in Newport, Rhode Island, is a beautiful and peaceful place that is popular with tourists and locals alike. However, it is also the site of a scary legend that has been passed down through the years. According to the legend, the park is haunted by the ghost of a young girl who drowned in the ocean nearby. The story goes that the girl's parents were wealthy and lived in the mansion, but they were very strict and didn't allow her to have any fun. One day, the girl decided that she had enough of her mundane life and ran away to the beach. She was determined to have some fun and enjoy the freedom that she always craved. But as the sun began to set, the girl started to feel a sense of dread wash over her. She realized she had no way back home and that her parents would be very angry with her when they found out what she had done. Just as she was starting to panic, a handsome young man walked up to her and offered to take her home. The girl was relieved and gratefully accepted his offer. However, as they walked around the shoreline, the young man revealed that he was actually a ghost. He told the girl that he had drowned in the ocean years ago and that he'd been looking for someone to take his place in the afterlife. The girl was terrified and tried to run away, but the ghost grabbed her and dragged her into the water. Now it's said that the ghost of the young girl haunts the Brenton Point State Park, crying out for help and trying to warn others of the danger that lurks in the waters. Some people claim to have heard her cries late at night, while others say that they've seen her ghost wandering the halls or the mansion. Whether or not the legend is true, it is a chilling tale that is sure to give anyone who hears this a good scare. At our number 2 spot, we have the ghost of the Hanging Rock. The The ghost of the Hanging Rock is a chilling story that many people in Rhode Island hear about. The legend tells the story of a young woman who was brutally murdered on the rocky cliffs of Narragansett Bay. It was said that the young woman was a beautiful and active member of the local community. She was loved by many and had a bright future ahead of her. However, her life was tragically cut short, and now her ghost is said to haunt the area, appearing as a ghostly figure with long flowing hair. If you decide to take a visit to the bay, chances are you may hear her haunting voice calling out your name. If you do decide to investigate this voice, you'll probably feel her presence, with some describing a sense of coldness and fear when they are near the site of that sound. Despite the many theories and stories surrounding the legend of the ghost of the Hanging Rock, the truth about what happened to the young woman remains a mystery, and her ghost continues to haunt the area, serving as a reminder of the terrible tragedy that took place on the rocky cliffs of this bay. At a number 1 spot, we have the Foster Witch. The Foster Witch of Rhode Island is a well-known legend in the state. The story goes that the witch, whose real name is unknown, lived in the town of Foster in the 18th century. She was known for her magic abilities and was often sought out by locals who needed help for various problems. One day, a group of townspeople became fed up with the witch and decided to put an end to her ways. They gathered together and burned her at the stake, but as she was being consumed by the flames, she cursed the town of Foster, saying that it would suffer for what it had done to her. For many years after her death, strange and mysterious events occurred in Foster. Animals would behave oddly, crops would fail, and strange noises could be heard throughout the night. Some have even claimed to see the ghost of the Foster Witch wandering the town, seeking revenge for her death. Eventually, the townspeople realized they needed to make amends for their actions and appease the spirit of the witch. They held a public ceremony during which they apologized for what they had done and promised to honor the witch's memory. From that day on, the strange occurrences in Foster stopped, and the town was able to move on in peace. Number 10, the death of Julia Lagar. Back in the mid-1800s, a young woman named Julia Lagar was visiting family and then suddenly fell ill. She slipped into a coma shortly after, and despite her family's hopes and prayers, she never woke up from it. The family physician declared her dead, and Julia was lovingly dressed for her funeral. In those days, there was no embalming fluids or preservation methods, so the ceremonial activities surrounding death were conducted at a very rapid pace. Julia was buried on the same day as her death, with loved ones paying their last respects. Her little body was taken to the family mausoleum, and the door was closed and locked. But 15 years later, another death in the family required the mausoleum to be opened once again. And to the horror of the family, they discovered that Julia's remains were crumpled at the foot of the mausoleum door. So basically, she had been buried alive. It was believed that the family physician was wrong and that she was in a deep coma where her respiratory and heart rates dropped precariously low. The tragedy of Julia's death led to a strange phenomenon that still continues to this day. The door of the mausoleum would open and close by itself. Chains and unbreakable locks were used to keep it sealed, but they would always break somehow. As recently as 50 years ago, they put a door that could only be removed by industrial heavy machinery, and even that door was opened. It is said that Julia's spirit guards the mausoleum, making sure no one dares put a door back on the building that killed her all those years ago. Visitors to the church head to the cemetery every year to take a look at the mausoleum, and some claim to have captured mysterious images on their camera. Number 9, boo hags. In South Carolina's Gula culture, there is a folklore creature called the boo hag. According to legend, boo hags are similar to vampires, but instead of nourishing blood, they feed off a person's breath by riding their victims. And it kind of looks something like this. And I know it looks like something else, but remember, there is nothing pleasurable about this. The boo hags are said to have no skin, which gives them this red appearance. So they will steal a victim's skin and use it as a disguise while they're out riding. They will then remove and hide the skin before they return home. The boo hag usually gain access to a victim's home by finding small openings like cracks or holes in the wall, and then they position themselves above the sleeping victim and just suck their breath. This makes the victims helpless and induces a very deep sleep. They tend to leave the victim alive so they could just use them again. However, if the victim struggles, the hag may just take their skin, leaving the victim to suffer, or worse, just die. After taking the victim's energy, the hag just flies off, as they must be in their skin before dawn or be trapped without skin. Victims of the creature may wake up feeling tired or short of breath, but that's only if you're lucky to be alive. There's an expression that's often used in South Carolina saying, "Don't let the hag ride ya," which refers to this legend. It is also believed that placing a broom beside your bed before sleeping would prevent the hag from riding, as it would distract the hag into counting the straws and would not get to ride the person before the sunrise. So don't forget, keep your brooms by your bed. Number 8, Lavinia Fisher. Lavinia Fisher, born in 1793, is considered to be the first widely recognized female serial killer in the United States. Though her birth location and maiden name are unknown, her story has been passed down through generations as a cautionary tale. Legend has it that Fisher and her husband John operate a hotel called the 6 Mile Wayfarer House near Charleston, South Carolina in the early 1800s. As time went by, men visiting Charleston began to disappear, and it was determined that they were last seen at this hotel. Despite an investigation by local authorities, no evidence was found to connect the Fishers to the crimes, so the investigation was cold and just dropped. But more people would disappear, and all the leads just brought them back to this hotel. Just for background information, Lavinia was known for her beauty and her charm, and had been using these qualities to lure in unsuspecting male travelers to their hotel. There they would rob and proceed to murder them after. For example, John Peoples, a traveler from Georgia, stopped at the hotel and was warmly greeted by Lavinia. She invited him in for tea and a meal, but he soon started feeling really uncomfortable with all the information he had provided and worried he might become a target for robbery. He managed to escape and flee to authorities in Charleston, and this is when the Fishers were finally arrested. They searched the entire hotel, and the authorities found evidence of dozens of travelers, a tea laced with an herb that can put someone for sleep for hours, and a mechanism that could be triggered to open the floorboards beneath the bed. And when they went into the basement, they found as many as hundreds of sets of human remains. The Fishers pleaded not guilty, but were ordered to stay in jail until their trial. Then in May 1820, they were found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. Number 7, the Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp. Deep in the swampland of Bishopville, South Carolina, lies a reptilian creature that has terrorized the state since the 1980s. The Lizard Man of Scape or Swamp, also known as the Lizard Man of Lee County, has been reported to inhabit this area for decades, leaving many to wonder about its existence. The first sighting began in July 1988 when the Lee County Sheriff's Office investigated a report of a car damaged overnight in the area of Browntown. The car had tooth marks, scratches, and muddy footprints left behind, which was very odd to begin with, but this eventually kickstarted the entire legend. Prompted by this news, a 17-year-old local named Christopher Davis reported to the sheriff as well, saying that his car was damaged by a creature 2 weeks prior. He described the creature as being 7 feet tall with green wet-like skin, 3 fingers, red eyes, and snake-like scales. This claim of encountering the creature set off a media frenzy. Newspapers, radio, and television stations started to report on the story. Local businesses even began selling Lizard Man t-shirts, and the local Chamber of Commerce encouraged the media attention as good for the community. A local radio station even offered $1 million for a reward for anyone who's able to capture the creature alive. However, with time, reports of the sightings gradually declined, and law enforcement officials speculated that the sightings were likely to just be a bear. But a bear and a lizard are significantly two different creatures, so who knows what these people just saw. Number 6, the Gray Man. Palsy Island in South Carolina is a summer resort town that boasts of beautiful beaches, tranquil marshes, and historic homes. But beyond its natural beauty, it is also home to a mysterious legend of the Gray Man, who is a figure said to appear on the beach prior to every single major hurricane that has struck the island for more than 200 years. According to the locals, seeing the Gray Man is a sign of danger for impending storms, obviously for hurricanes as we just mentioned. Eyewitness accounts vary, but most people describe the Gray Man as a figure dressed in all gray clothing. Obviously, they appear on the beach either stepping out of the dunes or waving to boaters from the shore before vanishing without a word. The majority of the sightings have occurred in Palsy Island, but there's also been reports of sightings in other coastal towns nearby. One of the most famous encounters with the Gray Man took place in 1989, just 2 days before Hurricane Hugo came about. Locals Jim and Clara Moore were just taking a walk on the beach when they saw a lone figure walking towards them. As he got closer, Jim raised his hand to say hi, but the figure disappeared right before his eyes. Their home suffered little damage during the storm, and Claire attributes this to their good fortune to the Gray Man and the Lord. The next time you're on vacation in Palsy Island, keep an eye out for the Gray Man. And remember, if you see him, it might be wise to heed his warning and seek shelter. In the hump of our list, we have the Third-Eyed Man. If you didn't know, the University of South Carolina is home to a network of mysterious underground tunnels known as the catacombs. And no, not the one from Paris, but still pretty creepy. These tunnels in the university have a rich history dating back to the 1800s, where it is said to have been used for the Civil War. But beneath the surface of these historical tunnels lies a dark legend, one that has kept students and locals alike on edge for decades. The Third-Eyed Man is said to be a mutant humanoid creature who resides in the catacombs. The first documented sighting of the bizarre creature was on November 12, 1949, when a student at the university spotted a strange man entering the sewer manhole outside Long Street Theater. The student Christopher Nichols wrote about his encounter in the campus newspaper, dubbing the creature as the Sewer Man, although this is not really confirmed as there is no mention of this in the newspaper archives. The following year, the Third Eye Man was spotted once again, this time by a university police officer. The officer saw scattered chicken remains all around the loading dock of Long Street Theater, and here is when he saw a strange man hunch over them, described as having a grotesque and distorted feature with a third eye in the center of his forehead and silver skin. Number 4, the Ghost Hound of Goshen Hill. The Ghost Hound of Goshen is a creature that is said to lurk on Buncombe Road, between the Ebenezer Church in Newberry County and the Goshen Hill in Union County in South Carolina. This ghostly hound is known to chase anyone who dares to trespass its territory, but fortunately it has never caught anyone, as far as we know. The origin of the ghost hound is shrouded in complete mystery, but some say it was once the pet of a peddler who was falsely accused of murder and hanged. His dog, unable to accept the loss of his master, is said to have remained by his grave until it died of starvation or was said to have been killed by townsfolk. The first recorded sighting of the ghost hound happened in 1855. A young houseworker who was sent to fetch a doctor was terrified by an enormous white dog that followed him all the way to the doctor's home, as well as claiming it was the largest dog he has ever seen. The doctor dismissed the boy's story, but it wasn't long before more and more people had encounters with the hound. Number 3, the Poinsett Bridge. The Poinsett Bridge, located in the northern mountains of Greenville County, South Carolina, is a historical bridge that is considered to be the most haunted bridge in the state as well. The bridge is believed to have been designed by Robert Mills, who is a native of South Carolina and an architect of many notable buildings such as the Washington Monument and the US Treasury Building. And it is also named after Joel Poinsett, a politician from South Carolina who served as a president of the state's Board of Public Works during its construction. But the Poinsett Bridge is not just famous for its history and architecture, but also for its paranormal activity. There are stories of workers falling ill and dying during its construction, with legends saying that a body is buried within the bridge. Others claim that ghostly workers from Ireland returned to visit the bridge at night, while another legend tells of a man who was shot and killed on the bridge in 1861, whose headless body returns on rainy nights. Visitors have reported ghostly encounters, eerie sounds, and sudden car troubles. And to add to its validity, Poinsett Bridge is considered one of the 30 most haunted places in America by the CN Traveler. Number 2, Morgan Island. Morgan Island, also known as Monkey Island, is a small island located off the coast of South Carolina in the United States. It is home to a species of monkey that were introduced to the island in the 1970s for scientific research. The monkeys quickly adapted to their new environment and their population grew rapidly. Today, there is an estimated 4,000 monkeys living on this island. While the monkeys may seem cute and harmless, they can be aggressive and have been known to attack visitors to the island. And to make matters worse, they say the monkeys are naturally infected with herpes B, which is completely deadly to us. As a result, the island is off limits to the public and can only be visited with permission from the research facility that manages the monkey population. In addition to the monkeys, Morgan Island is home to a variety of other wildlife that may scare you. This includes alligators, snakes, and all sorts of poisonous and venomous creatures. And obviously, only researchers are allowed here. And funny enough, their first rule when they come here is to not get peed on by the monkeys because it can literally be fatal. Number 1, Battery Carriage House. If you're a paranormal enthusiast and you're in Charleston, South Carolina, you may consider staying a night at the Battery Carriage House Inn, which is known to be the most haunted hotel in the city. The Battery Carriage House Inn has a rich history dating back to 1843 when it was purchased by Samuel N. Stevens, who is a prosperous lender and a broker of crops. The property has changed hands several times over the years, including during the Civil War when it was used as a defense base against Union intruders. The last owner, Andrew Simons, was a phosphate mining businessman and the founder of the First National Bank of South Carolina. Today, the hotel is owned by Drayden Hasty, the great-great-grandson of Andrew Simmons. The inn's haunted reputation is not to be taken lightly too, as there has been multiple ghostly encounters reported by guests and staff members alike. Room 8 is said to be the most haunted, with a headless torso ghost that is said to be sitting in the middle of the room. Guests say this ghost meets them during some nights and even growls at them. Room 10 is also said to be visited by a gentleman ghost who crawls into the bed with female guests and disappears through a built-in entertainment unit when confronted. The hotel staff also speculates that the ghost in room 8 may be a Civil War soldier who was the victim of a munition accident. The ghost in room 10, however, is said to be the spirit of a man who has an untimely death at the inn. Would you stay a night at this hotel? Cause I probably wouldn't.
Starting off at number 10, Gitche Manitou Murders. The Gitche Manitou is a nature preserve just southeast of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, in the northeastern corner of Iowa that many believe is haunted. It has ancient Native American burial grounds, has witnessed the execution of 4 teens, and has been the site of an assault of a young child. In November of 1973, 5 teens from Sioux Falls went out camping in the area. The unsuspecting group was sitting by a fire with some green leafy substances when suddenly a shotgun went off. Roger SM, who was 17, instantly passed away by brothers Alan, David, and James Fryer, who descended on the group pretending to be cops. They separated the remaining 3 boys from the only girl, 13-year-old Sandra Chesky, and placed the girl in the back of their truck. Then the Fryer brothers lined up Stuart Bade, 15, with his little brother Dana Bade, 14, and friend Michael Hardoth, who was 15, and executed them. The little girl was kept alive and taken advantage of by James Fryer. She later identified the attackers and testified against them. They were sentenced to life in prison, but locals on both sides, Iowa and South Dakota, believe their horrible crimes still haunt the area. Number 9. Spook Road. Known to locals as Spook Road, this eerie stretch just outside of Brandon, South Dakota has quite the collection of creepy occurrences. Winding through tunnels, running over bridges, and lined in trees, locals claim this road is especially unnerving in the fall of winter months. There are many theories about the road, including one claim if you drive away from the town and count the number of turns, and then drive back and count them, you will end up with different numbers. Like driving in one direction will take you over 5 bridges, but on the way back you'll only cross 4. As if this wasn't weird enough, many cars have also wrecked on this road, which often leaves drivers with an unsettled feeling. While some people believe Spook Road is mere folklore, others will defend it to the end, with some die-hard believers even creating a Facebook group about Spook Road. Allegedly, people who also take their own lives here can still be seen hanging from both bridges and the trees, their bulging eyes watching you as you cross in horror. Number 8. Orpheum Theater. In Sioux Falls, South Dakota sits the historic Orpheum Theater with its very own ghost. The spirit, fondly referred to as Larry, may or may not be the ghost of an actor who disappeared during a dress rehearsal many years ago. Allegedly, the sound of a gunshot rang out from the light booth. When his fellow actors ran up to investigate, all that remained was a pool of blood and no body was ever found. The theater first opened in 1913, but changed hands in 1954. The new owners allegedly found a casket in the boiler room, but when they came back later to clean things out, the casket was gone. Reports of strange noises and sightings of a shadow figure became common in the old theater, and one of the more intriguing reports happened in 1959. Actor Ray Loftusness became one of the many to see this shadow man on the balcony. On that particular night, he said Larry was illuminated by the green and blue lights that was pointing directly at him. He claimed that he was hit by an icy blast of air. Then twice that night, he was assaulted by falling sandbags and was even knocked unconscious. Number 7. Sika Hollow. The Dakota Sioux Native Americans were said to have once hunted in the forest ravines known as Sika Hollow. That is, until they realized it was haunted and put a warning on its name. Sika means evil, and there are several legends that have come out of the state park. It's believed evil is steeped into every nook and cranny of this area, which is why water runs red in the Sika Hollow Springs. Never mind the mineral content, it's pure evil. The path referred to as the Trial of Spirits has bubbling red bogs and was believed by the Sioux to be the flesh and blood of their ancestors. Between all the red water, swamp gas, and tree stumps glowing in the dark, it's no wonder they thought this place was evil. Perhaps they were right. There was a rash of mysterious disappearances in the 1970s. Paired with sightings of a half-man, half-beast similar to Bigfoot in these woods. Even today, visitors have claimed to see spirits of Indians in addition to hearing voices, war cries, and chanting. This one certainly seems terrifying for sure, and definitely not a place I would want to visit. Number 6. 1880 Train Haunting. The 1880 train that runs through Hill City is rumored to be another one of the most haunted places in South Dakota. While some of the train cars are used at the current tourist attraction, many remain abandoned. Some employees have specifically mentioned seeing a man standing in the back of the eating car, only to disappear seconds later. It said that the man was crossing the tracks and accidentally got stuck and unfortunately passed away while trying to break free, and his soul now haunts the train that took his life. Trains didn't really freak me out before, but now hearing this story, I'm pretty freaked out. Halfway at number 5, Walking Sam. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation has had an alarmingly high rate of people taking their own lives amongst their youth, and it's believed an urban legend is responsible for this. The land is being stalked by an evil, an ancient entity that takes the form of Walking Sam, like the Tall Man, Slender Man, and the long-feared Stickman. This creature feeds on the living, infecting their minds and altering their thoughts. In the case of Walking Sam, his evil bidding is collecting the souls of people who take their own lives so he doesn't have to wander the earth alone. He stands around 7 feet tall, has no mouth, and has gangly limbs. When his arms are outstretched, you can see the bodies of Lakota men and women hanging from them. Since December of 2014, Pine Ridge has had 103 attempts of people trying to take their own life, with 9 people unfortunately succeeding. The youngest was only 12 and the oldest was just 24. Thankfully, church leader Pastor John Tubles discovered and prevented one of these plans from being carried out. He and a few other adults found a group of teenagers with rope already hanging from the trees. Another group of teens, all female, tried to carry out a similar plan but were stopped in time. But no one has been able to answer the biggest question: why? Tribe leaders, local mental health professionals, and law enforcement are scratching their heads on what is causing this. Number 4. Little Devils. The Spirit Mound near Vermilion has been long feared by Native Americans. They wouldn't dare go near it because of the legend of the Little Devils, who guard the mounds, attacking anyone who tries to climb them with magic arrows. The legend was first documented in 1804 and tells of the massacre that makes the mounds taboo today. However, people say it seems to have existed since long before then. Somewhere around the mid-18th century, hundreds of Indian warriors allegedly attempted to rid the world of evil little creatures, but it was they who ended up slaughtered instead. So now they stay away and leave the mounds to Little Devils. Number 3. Hookie Jack. A famous ghost from Rapid City, South Dakota is Hookie Jack. In life, his name was John Leary, but after a mining explosion in the 1800s, he lost both of his arms and one eye. His arms were replaced with hooks, hence the name Hookie Jack. He became a Rapid City police officer, but tragically passed away after being struck by a car in 1926. Now his spirit is said to haunt his former residence, which has since been converted into a tavern. According to legend, Hookie Jack lived on the 3rd floor and can still be heard roaming up there today. Employees don't even want to venture to that floor unless they absolutely must. Many employees have even refused to work the closing shift alone. Voices, rattling, and eerie sounds can all be heard upstairs at night. Strange flashing lights and spirit orbs have been caught on security footage. Multiple witnesses have seen chairs, tables, and the billiard balls moving around the table on their own. A few bartenders even claim to have seen a figure sit at the end of the bar out of the corner of their eye, only to look up and realize no one's there. Number 2. Devil's Gulch. One of the most famous urban legends in South Dakota happened in the town of Garriston. According to the local lore, infamous outlaw Jesse James successfully evaded capture in 1876 by leaping over the Devil's Gulch on horseback. Keep in mind that the Devil's Gulch is a ravine that runs 60 feet deep and is 20 feet wide. Jumping over something that massive without spooking a horse is highly improbable, and most historians would say it's impossible, but that doesn't stop locals from swearing it happened. Number 1. Hotel Alex Johnson. A hotel so surely haunted they actually advertise it right on their website. Come take a tour or stay at this haunted mansion. One of the main ghosts claimed to be seen here is the hotel's namesake, Alex Johnson himself. It is said that he comes around to make sure the hotel is still running well, but does he have any malicious intent? Why don't you book a stay and test the theory yourself? If you dare, that is.
At number 10 spot, we have the Skin Tom. This is a well-known one across the entire state, so I apologize in advance if I don't do the story justice. But somewhere in Wallen, Tennessee, a young man named Tom was living a very privileged life by many of our standards. He was a very good-looking person, he was funny, and very intellectual. Basically, a giga-chat. Being like this, he attracted many partners, but after every single one, he was just never satisfied. It wasn't until he met a girl from the town over where his whole perspective changed. He admired her beauty over anything and became enticed immediately. But there was one thing he didn't consider. She was already married. And Tom being Tom, he still went after the girl. Eventually, the lady's husband will become aware of this affair and decide to track down Tom to get his ultimate revenge. So one day he followed his wife to Lover's Lane as she was meeting up with Tom. And when the two hugged, the husband came out of nowhere and grabbed Tom from the vehicle and carried him into the woods. When the cops arrived, they found a full suit of human skin hanging from a tree. Now if you go to Lover's Lane, you may catch a glimpse of Tom's horrific skinned body, but that's only if you're unfaithful. At number 9 spot, we have the Pine Haven School. Somewhere in Jamestown, Tennessee, there's an abandoned all-boys school that was the site of many horrific things back in the day. The legend of the school goes that a group of bullies were bugging and taunting another classmate inside of the bathroom. At first, they were just shoving him around and calling him names, but the abuse just didn't stop there and only proceeded to get worse. It was then one of the boys stuck behind him and pushed him straight into the bathroom mirror. After coming into contact with the mirror, he immediately shattered it, causing a shard of glass to cut his neck, killing him within minutes. In an attempt to cover up their actions, they decided to put the body underneath the floor beds underneath the sink of the bathroom. And after that incident, the bullies were caught, but the students of the school said that the boy's spirit never left the bathroom. There were many claims saying that if you went into this boy's bathroom and looked into one of the mirrors, you may catch a glimpse of his bloody apparition staring behind you. In some accounts, people claim to be pushed by an unseeable force when looking into this mirror. But it all doesn't matter now since the school was abandoned in the 90s. At number 8 spot with the Flintville Monster. During the 1970s, a creature described to look like Bigfoot was terrorizing the people of Flintville, Tennessee. The monster would come out of the forest and begin to slaughter people's livestock, abduct children, and even go after and attack people's vehicles. The first sighting was in April 1976 when a woman decided to call the cops and report that a 7 to 8 feet tall hairy creature had come out of the forest, came straight to her car, pulled the radio antennas off of them, and then proceeded to jump on top of the roof of her car. This story would kickstart the legend of the Flintville monster, and many people would come out to report their own experiences with this creature. At our number 7 spot, we have the Chickamauga battlefield. The second bloodiest battle in the Civil War happened in southeastern Tennessee. This battle started in September 1863, and by the end of it, there were more than 34,000 lives lost, and many of the injured Union soldiers were left on the field for weeks, only to be buried into unmarked graves by their enemies. The sight of restless souls is why many believe that they still linger on the battlefield, awaiting another potential conflict. One of the spirits found on the battlefield is the Lady in White. Many see her floating across the field, looking down as if she's looking for her husband who passed away during the war. However, the most infamous ghost found on the premises is known as Green Eyes. Locals believe that only his head was found in the rubble, and when they looked at it, they immediately noticed his piercing green eyes. Ever since they discovered his remains, he has appeared to people walking on the battlefield. This is either in the form of a headless man or a half man, half beast with sharp fangs and notorious green eyes. At our number 6 spot, we have the Spearfinger. In the mountains of Tennessee, the Cherokee tribe told a story that haunted people for generations. It was said that a vampiric humanoid would walk along the nearby river and creeks looking for children. They would do this by shape-shifting themselves as an innocent, fragile old woman, and when the children began to trust them even a little bit, they would use their spear-like finger to stab directly through the child's heart. Yeah, I know, pretty brutal. From here, they would consume their favorite part of the body, which is the liver. But apart from their tendencies to hunt, they're also said to have the power to control any stone, no matter the size. This creature could fuse 2 stones together just by using its mind, and could even place large boulders above their victims with ease in order to completely squish them to death. Eventually, a great council was created to put an end to the Spearfinger. Once they trapped the creature, they noticed that arrows and knives did nothing to their stone skin. It wasn't until a bird landed on the creature's right hand when they began to notice that she carried her heart there. They began to direct their aim towards her hand, which eventually ended up killing it, ending the curse of Spearfinger for good. In the hump for our list, we have the Tennessee State Prison. Built in 1898, this castle-looking prison was open for almost an entire century, and during its time, it housed many of America's most notorious criminals. It was a maximum security facility, but it was also notorious for their poor living conditions and their constant riots. For example, in 1902, a group of 17 prisoners would break out of their cells and start a riot within the jail, with one of the prisoners being murdered and 2 of the 17 prisoners actually escaping. Then in 1939, another jailbreak occurred with the prisoners setting fire to some areas of the prison, including the dining room, which ended up killing a few more of the workers and other prisoners. Then during the years 1975 to 1985, there were countless other riots and jailbreaks within the prison. People who have previously visited the old Tennessee State Prison have described what they think to be the sounds of cell bars clanking, spine-chilling cries, and footsteps that seem to echo throughout the halls when no one else is there. Eventually, the prison would be abandoned in 1992 due to its inhumane conditions and the fact that the building was completely unstable. At number 4 spot, we have the Shiloh National Park. With another Civil War battlefield on this list, we have the Shiloh National Park. This place is located in southwestern Tennessee, and many locals claim that the spirits of the soldiers still occupy the grounds. The Battle of Shiloh occurred in 1862, which had a total of 100,000 American soldiers with over 20,000 casualties. After the years following the war, many visitors to the national park claim that this place is one of the most haunted places in the state. This is because some say that when they're in an isolated part of the field, they hear war drums and the sounds of muskets firing in the distance. Some even claim that the nearby pond randomly turns red, symbolizing the blood of the men who passed away there. In the cemetery nearby, it holds as many as 3,500 Civil War soldiers, with over 2,000 of them being unnamed. After that many deaths in one certain place, it's really no surprise that there's something supernatural happening. At number 3 spot, we have the Orpheum Theater. Built in 1928, the Orpheum Theater in Memphis, Tennessee has been the stage for performers and audiences to this day. As years went by, many watchers report small bits of supernatural activity, ranging from being tapped on the shoulders by unseeable forces to being whispered from underneath their seats. So as the reports started to pile up, psychics and other paranormal investigators decided to investigate the theater. After their findings, they concluded that there were at least 7 spirits that made the place their home. The most famous out of the 7 is a woman named Mary. Story goes that in 1921, there was another building standing on the grounds of the Orpheum Theater, which was named the Grand Opera House. Here, 12-year-old Mary passed away right in front of the house after being caught in a hit-and-run accident. Now she is spotted by the majority of visitors, notorious for wearing old-fashioned clothing and dancing around the theater when someone is performing. At number 2 spot, with the ghostly bride of Rotherwood Mansion. Frederick Ross, the town's founder, is also the owner of the Rotherford Mansion in Kingsport. Ever since moving into the mansion, his daughter Rowena lived a very miserable life, losing both her first husband to yellow fever and then her second husband on the day of their wedding. She eventually had a daughter after her 3rd marriage, but as time went by, her daughter too would pass away. Rowena was overpowered by her sadness and ultimately committed suicide. It is thought that she now haunts the estate. The ghost is now known as the Ghost Bride because it is thought to wear all white clothing walking around the grounds. At number 1 spot, with the Bell Witch Cave. This one literally has the word witch in its name, so you know there's probably nothing good about it. According to the legend of the Bell Witch, in 1804, a farmer named John Bell moved his wife and his kids to a farm along the Red River in northern Robertson County. The property also included a cave, which became known as the Bell Witch Cave, believed to be haunted by the spirit of a witch named Kate Batts. This woman felt she was cheated by the Bells in the land purchase and ever since carried a strong dislike for the Bell family. Then when John Bell passed away under suspicious circumstances, people believed it to be the witch who was supposedly hiding in that very cave.